Here, Microsoft Power Apps. This is not a sales pitch. We're here to show or share some of our learnings and some of the opportunities that everyone has with a Microsoft 365 account to start automating business processes and saving time and money. So on to slide 1, please, Laura. Bit of an introduction as to Microsoft. We all know the name, founded in 1975 or April the 4th, 1975 by Bill Gates and Paul Allen. Microsoft Disk Operating System, or MS-DOS, took the desktop computer industry by storm in the 80s, and then Windows as the first mainstream graphical user interface really built upon that. As much as using Windows and DOS at home myself, in a professional capacity, I started fiddling with Microsoft Exchange in the late 90s, and that was Microsoft's business email platform. And it really is still today, as far as I'm concerned at least, the most mature and professional business email platform there is. Over the noughties, or sort of 2000 to 2010, the Microsoft Exchange product from Microsoft was turned into a hosted offering. Not initially just by Microsoft, by partners and Microsoft partners, and I was working with one at the time, but by 2010, Business Productivity Online Services was Microsoft's sort of mature online platform for applications that you might use as a service rather than procuring the software, installing it on your own hardware. And it was the Kickstarter to my business as well, really, in terms of empowering SME businesses to have contacts, calendar and email synchronized across all devices, which may have been a facility or a service that was only available to larger organizations before that. Today, we're going into an element of Microsoft 365 called Power Platform. It really is the first time that tools of this power have been available to the likes of me. You know, as much as I'm an IT manager and I understand all the systems, I'm not a software developer. I can create rules in Outlook and you know, some basic formulas in Excel, but Power Platform, or what I'm going to tell you about, Power Automate, has really made that accessible, and I've used it quite a bit. 86% of Fortune 500 companies are currently using Power Apps. 188% return on investment. These are Microsoft stats. We'll share some links at the end. There's a 74% reduction in development costs with using the Power Platform. And there's an average 3.2 hours time saving per employee per week with these tools. So next slide, please, Laura. TechRelate is my business, founded in 2009. And we were driven very much by enabling people to use technology, and have added different skills throughout the last 13 years. As I say, we're not trying to sell you anything here. We want you to understand what's available. The other company involved in this presentation is Bliss Systems, Dan's company that was started in 2005. They're expert software developers. They cut their teeth building you know, big software platforms for large organizations, and they've really harnessed the power of Azure. That's Microsoft's virtual computing platform, which seamlessly integrates to 365. Next, please, Laura. Now, before I risk talking too much, I'm just going to tell you very briefly about Power Automate, one of the facilities within the Power Platform. Think of it as your own personal assistant. Anytime that you're repeating a task in Microsoft 365, you can probably automate it to happen. So you visit office.com, visit Power Automate, create a flow, give it a name. What's the trigger? A date or an email arriving or a file being saved somewhere. What's the action? You want a reply automated, or you want a reply automated in 30 days, or you want a PDF created from that document and saved in SharePoint, whereas previously it was in OneDrive. You might want to collect tweets of a certain hashtag and put them in a spreadsheet. There are over 450 services you can connect into 365 or to Power Automate, and there's hundreds of templates available for ideas that other people have had to automate their lives. You will save, or their business lives, I should say, you will save time and money with automation. You only need a basic understanding of Office applications, and the code is no complex than sort of PowerPoint or Excel formulas. That's saying that PowerPoint can be pretty complex, especially when Laura's creating them. Not my skill. But anyway, never have such powerful tools been available and so intuitive to use. So that's enough from me. I'm going to hand over to Dan, who's going to show us an application he built for time management in business in a few hours. So thanks very much for listening. I will close at the end, but Dan, over to you, please.
Okay, thanks, Julian. So as Julian mentioned, I'm one of the directors at Bliss Systems, and we started a good almost 20 years ago, 18 years ago. I'll jump straight into this presentation, and I'm going to share my screen and then describe what we've done. It's a very simple app. So let me just start sharing. Hopefully you should see my screen now. Let me know if you don't. So just as a demonstration, really, I built a simple app to show off how easy it is to build in a lot of integration with a lot of different touch points that you already have existing within your Microsoft Office 365 sort of environment. So this diagram we're looking at here, that's just showing all the different elements that I've touched on within Office 365. So this app touches on Microsoft Teams, it uses Power Automate, it uses Power Apps, it uses mobile, because whether you know it or not just yet, if you've got Power Apps, there's a mobile app and you can use all the apps you create in Power Apps, Canvas apps, with your mobile out of the box, no extra work required. I've used some push notifications, I've used SharePoint lists, and I've used Outlook. So all of that is done. And as Julian said, it took myself 2 or 3 hours of effort to build this. Now, I wouldn't expect everyone to be able to build it that fast. I do have a long history in software, but it didn't need any code, nothing more complicated, as you mentioned, Julian, than a couple of lines, no more difficult than you would put into an Excel formula. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll explain how this one works very briefly. It's only 4 steps, but the first thing I'll do is I'll go to this window here, which is a mock-up of the mobile screen. I was going to use the mobile phone, but this just saves me stopping sharing and resharing. So the first thing I want to do as an employee is to submit a holiday request. So I've got 3 buttons here: submit request, go to my approvals, or go to my requests for holidays. So I'm just going to submit a quick request here, and it defaults to today's date, tomorrow's date, which you probably wouldn't want to in a real life scenario. And I'm going to put a quick note into my boss: can I please have a day off? And I'm going to click submit and submit that request. Fine, your request has been submitted. That's all very good. So what happens here then, going back to this screen, me, the little grey person there, I've submitted a request that's gone through Power Apps, and that has then published, created a record rather, in a SharePoint list. And I can show you that list here. There it is. You can see it. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with SharePoint lists. If you're not, you can ask me later. Built-in part of all SharePoint tenants. So yeah, you can see its status has been submitted. It was myself who submitted it, and my message in there. The next step is that Power Automate, which is this icon here, takes control. It reads the list I was just showing in your SharePoint, and it sends a Teams message to the manager. Now, of course, I'm my own manager in this instance because we're doing a demo. So if I then open Teams, which I'm trying to do now.
Hello, Julian, can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yeah, we can hear and see you, John.
Thank you very much.
All right, mate. Good to have you
How's
here.
business?
Really good. I'll catch up with you afterwards, buddy.
Great.
So, yes, moving on to this part where you're seeing here, the SharePoint list is triggered Power Automate to send a Teams message. So if I go back to here, I can see in my Microsoft Teams, I've got a special channel which I created called Power Automate, which is just specifically for this demo. But you could put it into any channel you wanted, and it sent a card, an approval card. So I can choose to approve or reject this staff member's holiday. I think with it being myself in this instance, I will approve it. So I'll put, yeah, go on then. And I'll submit that request. This is all within Teams. These are sort of cards within Teams that are very simple to use. So I've now approved it. It said I've approved it. So now we're on step 3. In fact, I've actually skipped step 3 because I've actually done it. So I logged onto Teams. That's me again as the boss. Logged onto Teams, accepted, rejected, and that's pushed it back into the Power Automate workflow. That's all very good. And now, the very last step, which is nobody needs to do anything, Power Automate has emailed me and sent a push notification to my phone. And if I can just open my email, I can just show you that this has literally just arrived at 10:14, 1 minute ago. Oh, that says you've already completed this request. That's because I've opened the wrong one. Happy to say your request for leave has been approved. Yeah, go on then. So in a nutshell, that's what I've been building here. And as you can see, if I go back to my SharePoint list and refresh that list, you can see that the record I had submitted using the Power Apps has now got a status of accepted, which I haven't changed in the list. It's all done through Power Automate. And I've also got an approval note in there from the Teams integration. I feel like I'm probably going on too much about this. It's probably gone on for too long. So I'll end the presentation there unless anyone's got any other questions. I built the app to be, not to be doing everything an annual leave booking system might do. It was just a demo. But you can see, even for a novice, within a day or so, could have, with an internet browser in front of them, could have built something like this.
Sorry, quick question. So
Yeah,
obviously this is showing as a SharePoint list.
That's right.
We've done something similar, but we're trialing it, sending an email to an approver.
Yes.
Is there a benefit of doing it an email on an approver versus a SharePoint list?
Well, this kind of does both. So I've made it a little asynchronous because it adds it to a SharePoint list and then sends an email for the approval. There's no, so this little demo that I've done kind of does both. And actually what I didn't show you is you can actually send an approval email and instead of using the Teams version, which I was demonstrating here, where you had the accept and reject buttons, you also get those accept and reject buttons directly in Microsoft Outlook. So you can actually approve or reject within there. The reason I had the middle ground of which I didn't have to have, about the leave, is that later in the year, if you have 100 different requests, some of which are accepted and rejected, you can then go in and see who's taken which days off. So you've got a longer term record, which you can also then export, as you can see here, just directly into Excel.
Good. One benefit I was just thinking as you were answering that is, in some instances we send the email to 2 people. So actually, by having it on a holiday on an actual list,
yeah,
when one person approves, then the other one obviously already knows that, rather than looking at an email where they don't know. Yeah. So
and the other benefit with the list is you can change your mind. So if I said, actually, Dan, forget it. You're not going on holiday. I'm going to reject that. I could just do it there and then. So you can alter the data after you've made a decision, which you would.
But that would still trigger an email back to the person to say it's been rejected, even after. Fine.
Yeah, because of the integration with Power Automate.
Okay.
So you can.
Also, sorry to jump in, but when you've got the approvals in Power Automate, you can choose how that's approved. So it can either be, so if you've got, say, 3 people who can approve this, you can either have it so that all 3 people have to approve it, or any of those 3 people can approve it. Yeah. So
that's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, because I flew through this at a rate of knots because I know we don't have loads of time, but more than happy for anyone to jump in or ask any questions. So that's the rationale for putting the SharePoint list behind the scenes there, because it allows us more automation later on if we choose to adapt to the application.
Thanks, Dan.
No problem at all.
I presume it would be quite easy for you to create a bucket of hours per job role or per employee.
Very simple, yeah.
So they couldn't just, unlike us managers, have as many holidays as they like, hey? Or
Yeah,
owners,
yeah,
should
yeah,
I say?
Yeah. We just apply for days working, don't we?
Yeah. And I know you won't
Yeah.
actually take that holiday because you'll be on the beach with your iPad open, responding to emails and.
Yeah, because that's working. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
right.
Brilliant. All right, well, that's great. Dan, I think we're handing over to Matt now to talk a little bit more about the Power Platform suite as a whole before we get a demo from Andrew about his app.
Before I take over, Ruben just asked a question about how you deploy it, Dan, to users.
So to users, you build it in your own environment on Power Apps, Power Automate, and then to publish it, you have to publish each one separately. I think that's right, isn't it, Andrew? Because it's a Power Apps and the Power Automate. So you can publish it, the Power Apps company-wide. Power Automate can stay in one place as one flow because it doesn't need everyone to have access to it. It just needs the managerial side of it, or the tenant side of it to look after it. So yeah, you can just give access, basically, give permission to your entire company to use it through the Power Apps portal, which actually secretly behind the scenes on this, this window here. This is where I, Wizard of Oz, pull the curtain. There is a bunch of tooling in here in terms of sharing and versioning and all sorts of, the code. I say the code, there is no code, but the stuff behind it. Speaking of which, assuming I've answered the question okay, since we're already here, when I mentioned earlier that it's no more complicated than entering the kind of data that you would put into an Excel cell, you can see up here. These are the kind of commands you put in. So you've got a simple function there. I've got an approval button. Let me just see the most. There are some that are not as simple, but most of them are very simple. So you've just got simple commands up here, like one-liners usually. So there you go. Anything else?
That's great.
We'll do some more questions at the end as well.
Yeah,
thanks. By all means.
Okay, so I'm going to just take over and just go through some of the basics of the platform and try and explain the various components with Power Apps and the rest of the platform, the Power Platform. And the goal here is to encourage you to become what's called a citizen developer, where you develop software yourself. So we're not talking about any particular programming language here, as Dan's just described. It's more like Excel than anything else. But the real benefit is if you develop applications yourself because of your knowledge, your insight, and not having to translate what you need to a developer, it can be a lot faster to develop applications. The Power Platform and Power Apps is designed for people to develop applications for themselves, for groups and for departments. But from small acorns, if you like, large trees can grow. So this could be just the start of things. And as I say, the goal here is to create some citizen developers. So why low code? Low code, Microsoft doesn't own low code. There's lots of applications and systems out there, platforms, but it's a big deal because people are saying, like Forrester, that it's going to grow tremendously, partly because of the benefits and advantages, but also because of I hate to say the skills shortages with developers these days. So creating your own is a good way to start. And it can create very high levels of customer satisfaction and through that competitive advantage. Because what you're doing, if you're responding to your customers by enhancing systems, by meeting their requirements as they grow and doing it quickly, that creates a great competitive advantage. And by keeping it in-house, you have higher security, and it is based on your insight and knowledge, everyday insight and knowledge of your own business. So there are three types within Power Apps. There are three types of application you can develop. So Dan's just shown you what's a Canvas app, which is really sort of a traditional type of app which you're familiar with using on the phone or on a tablet. It does use these sort of Excel style expressions. It links with data from the Microsoft environment, and there's a tremendous range of data sources you can build in from communications controls. So you can bring in and design around buttons, lists, text inputs, things like that. You can then deploy it to mobile and tablet devices or through a browser. You can also embed Canvas apps into Microsoft Teams and SharePoint. Second type of app is a model app, which is a little bit more complex. It's really designed to start implementing, building in flows of information and process. It's still using component elements to design the application. It builds in these flows, but the big difference here is that it can use something called the Dataverse, which is an inbuilt database optimized for this kind of application. And then lastly, we've got Portal Apps. So Portal Apps has actually just been rebranded very recently and enhanced into something called Power Pages. So that's sort of a fifth element to the Power Platform. It still uses low-code development environments, but it creates websites really to bring in all the other elements of the Power Platform into one place. So you can quickly create customized portals and create great depth to your applications and present them in a great way. There's still no need particularly to code. It brings in all the elements. It's secure. It runs on Microsoft and Azure, and it can be used then as a launch pad to bring in more complex development if you need it. If you need to. Okay, so I'm going to give you an overview. We talked about Power Apps, but it's part of a family of tools. So there's Power Apps, Power Automate, which has been mentioned, Power BI. I'm going to show you a couple of slides on that, which is really to do with showing dashboards and showing the information in a visual way. Power Virtual Agents is where we're all familiar with going on a website these days and wanting to talk to somebody about something and being presented with like a robotic agent, which is designed to answer regular, familiar, repeatable questions which come up quite a lot, and use a decision-making flow behind the scenes to try and steer you in the right way. So that's also part of the Power Platform. And then lastly, Power Pages I just mentioned. Underlying those components, those different tools, are some common services, and really this is when you start to get into more of the power and the complexities of Power Platform, but it's there to ensure that you don't run out of space, if you like, when you're developing something. One of the main things about this is data connectors. So if I can show you, when you go, the number of data connectors that are out there for the Power Platform is growing every day, and they can link you to information and send information to those other systems. So for instance, just looking through here, you've got things like MailChimp, you've got Slack, you've got Microsoft Notes, and you've got Gmail. So and they don't need to be used in isolation. You can start to combine and consolidate information in one place through the Power Platform. So what can you do? And we've seen Dan's great little application there on Canvas apps. So you can develop the Canvas app out into different platforms. So you're presenting it on a tablet, you're presenting it on a web page, presenting it on a mobile app, and you can create some very feature-rich systems using the Power Apps. Power Automate is where you're using repetitive tasks and creating flows. In fact, Power Automate was previously called Microsoft Flow. It can link automatically link information between apps, services, and synchronize information, and then send out notifications and/or collect data. So this is how Power Automate looks when you're laying it out. It's very simple. It's a very visually driven interface where you work out how somebody's going to work, how a process is going to be deployed automatically. Power BI, which is to do with business intelligence and the presentation of data in a visual way, is quite a very powerful tool in its own right. And actually, you can build, in a converse way, you can build Power Apps into Power BI, so it can work both ways. Virtual agents, we've all seen the robots, and this is the sort of thing that you see when you've developed the virtual agents application, and you can deploy it as part of the Power Platform. And then Power Pages, which is where you bring it all together into a website with all the services associated with what we've just described. I think that gives you an overview. Just to summarize, and really how you might then move on from just creating applications yourselves and how you work with developers. Now, this is where the cost does come in, and it's designed to solve complexity, but often you will have some impacts. If you develop the applications yourselves, you inherit those advantages, and everybody around you in the department or with knowledge of what you're trying to achieve can help. But there are communications issues, and this is the traditional, unfortunately, of how professional development pans out. Often things are lost in translation. You're trying to communicate between two worlds, and really that's where the cost comes in. But help is at hand, because you may need professional developers, and low code can actually help you explain what you're looking for as a prototype. And in that sense, what you're entering into is what's called a fusion development process. That's where the citizen developer creates something, gets so far, and then wants help, and professional developers can come in and take that application a bit further, deploy it to end users, get the feedback back into the citizen developer, who may be able to respond to those requirements. But if it becomes too difficult, pass back to professional development. That's it. I'd like to hand over to Andrew to show you another application.
Hi everyone.
Thank you.
Let me just work out how to share my screen properly. Hopefully you can see you can see yourself, and then you'll see the screen. Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Wonderful, that's great. So yes, well, Power Apps is I'm going to show you through an app I created for a customer in a moment, but just to pick up on what everyone else said, when you create these apps, you can mold them how you want them around your company. They're bespoke to you, but the really cool thing is that once you've built it, it's yours. There's no ongoing payment that you have to pay every month, because it's already included in your Office 365 licensing, which is a huge benefit, because if you take out an app with someone else, you're likely to have a monthly cost. It's definitely worth looking into. And like everyone said, you can link it to an enormous amount of things, and really make it your own app. I'm going to show you what's called a Canvas app, which is what they call pixel perfect. So we place items exactly where we want them on the screen, and then they can do a thing. Someone asked about how this looks on a mobile. So you have the Power Apps application on your mobile, which you can download for for Google phones or for iPhones, and it will look like this. And all of your applications will be in this list. All of the applications that are shared with you. When you click on it, it will take you into the app. In this case, this was an app that was at the beginning of COVID. A customer came to us because they had a mailroom, and all of the post went to this mailroom, and then there were a series of people that would farm this post out to all of the different sites that this customer had. Obviously, with COVID, everyone went home, which made it much more difficult, because they didn't have those internal routes to get the post out to the people that needed it. So we created this, which is just a really simple app to take an image of every page of a document that's been posted and then email it out to somebody, or a collection. So I've got a test document, which is really boring, but just to demo it a little bit. So you click on it, and then I'm not going to try and get it too perfect, but you can see what happens. You do that. If you accidentally take a photo of something you didn't mean to, you can go and delete it, and then you type in a subject, pick people to send it to, and then you click send. Now, I'm kind of showing you this. It's a bit boring just to watch an app being used, because it doesn't really excite you. What I want to try and get you to do is to get excited about how you can use this in your company. Try and think of the ways and places that you have sticking points, the things that are currently a paper-based process that really you wish had been put digital. Those are the places where you can make a huge difference. That's where you're going to get your return on investment, because you won't have people spending their time doing mundane tasks. You can free them up to do more important things. And in terms of the Citizen Code, building it yourself, the people, I think most of us have met this person in companies that we've worked at. There's usually somebody who's just a genius at Excel. They can make Excel do things that you didn't even know it could do. And they build applications that really run your company without you even really realizing. Those are the things in the background really getting on with the things. Those are the people that will really benefit from this, because they can go and research, they can look into how it works, and they can make your company better by using it. And like Matt said, if you get stuck, come and talk to us. We're happy to help. And also, I know as part of this, we're offering a 30-minute consultation to go through this with you, which might just be us discussing where it could fit in your company, or it might be that we can hop on and open Power Apps and point at the bits that matter, the things that really you need to know to begin with. We can do that, and we can show you around. And also there's a Power Apps community or Power Platform community. It's really, really good. There's a lot of people there with a lot of knowledge, and whenever I get stuck, I go there and people help, and they are really helpful. So I'd recommend that. The trick is to try and find those things that would help your company. So I can explain a couple of apps that I've built before, just to try and trigger something in your mind that might help you. So, for example, there was a customer that had to send payments out to their customers, and those payments needed to be approved and then sent onto accounts. So we built an app where they can go on, they can type in all the information about what money needs to be sent to where and from who. And then, dependent on how much money it was, it went through to be approved by different people. So if it was under a certain value, it was approved by person A. If it was over a certain value, it was approved by person B. And then it went all the way through to the accounts paying it. But what's really cool is Power Automate sat in the background looking after that entire business process. Nobody had to think, oh, have we done that? Power Automate was looking after it and letting people know what needed to be done. It was really powerful. There was another company who had they have a lot of trademarks and a lot of contracts with different suppliers and different customers, and those trademarks and those contracts they expire, and they found that there were quite a lot of things. They suddenly realized that their trademark that they thought that they had, it expired. So again, we built a power app that they could go on and upload all the information about their trademarks, their contracts. And Power Automate sat in the background, and daily it looked up whether or not this particular item was going to expire, and if it was going to expire, it emailed them to say this is going to expire soon. And then once it had expired, it emailed them every day to say this has expired, which means that customer won't have to worry about whether the things are expiring again. They'll get told. There's loads, and also the fact that you can chuck it onto your mobile without having to do any development. You don't have to know how to make a mobile phone work as an application. It just does. Means you can put the power in your end users' hands. For example, we had a company who they're a fishery company, and they've got a lot of sailors and fishermen that go out on the boats. Now, with the best will in the world, they themselves agreed they don't understand computers, they don't understand technology, they don't want to understand it, they just want to fish, which is fine. They do daily checks on those boats to make sure those boats are safe and to make sure that various different things are done. Again, we built them an app. they can go and the sailors were over the moon because they no longer have all these pieces of paper hanging around at all. They could just go onto their app. They can use the camera to take photos of the different things as they find them to make sure that they're safe, and that information is pushed straight back to head office to be looked at and documented. So yeah, it gets away from that paper-based process of having to get that paper back to them. Like I say, there's loads of real world ideas that can happen. The best thing you can do is to go and look at your own company and think, I wonder if Power Automate, I wonder if Power Apps could help us with that, and either start having a look yourself to see if you can do it, or engage us and we can help you through it. It's pretty cool. I'm hoping that I'm exciting everyone, because I know when Power Apps first came out, I properly got excited. Well, the first thing I did is got really confused because it is a different way of working than normal development. But once I got to grips with it, yeah, the possibilities are kind of endless. You can do whatever you want, and there's other things as well. Like there's I don't know if any of you have come across a flick button before. It's just a little button that you can press. That's it. You can trigger Power Automate flows with that button, so you can press the button and do stuff. So again, you can have physical, real world things. For example, we had a security guard that had to go around to look around a building every hour. They needed to go and check every area and prove that they were there. So we put a flick button in every location, and when they got there, they pressed the button to prove that they'd been there, and then you had a track of exactly when they were there and what happened. There are some really cool things you can do with this. I'm going to probably stop talking about it now.
Thank you, Andrew.
I don't want to bore everyone, but
look, your interest and your enthusiasm for it is really really good. It's really infectious. I'm really excited by it. In fact, I've got mail. Hey.
Yes, did you get the email, Julian?
Yeah, here we go. I've got the attachments that you shared. And yeah, so great demo. Thank you very much. Let's stop the share and let's give opportunities to talk. You know, the bottom line is this is easy to use. On Tuesday, a client said to me, every time we receive an email to this shared mailbox, I want a 30-day follow-up. Now, Outlook rules don't do that. They don't incorporate a scheduler. They don't give you a record you can use. But jumping into Power Automate allowed me to create a trigger, which was email received to a shared mailbox, an action, which was delay 30 days, and then another action, which was sending a message to the data compliance officer to say, have you followed up on this data compliance important email? So there are numerous business challenges which you can solve with really basic automations in Power Automate, but what the clever stuff is making apps and stuff. You know, Andrew and Dan have gone a little bit beyond what I was able to do in half an hour by spending a bit more time and creating a visually pleasing application. So I'm really grateful for the expertise of Dan and Andrew, who are software developers, as well as the brilliant overview from Matt, who understands this industry more than I do. What I understand is people's needs and what they need to do with their business and technology, because I'm a business owner too, and I have the same challenges. So I want to reinforce that we emailed everyone the opportunity to have 30-minute conversations with us. We're really excited about enabling everyone to use this platform. And thank you for coming to see this presentation. It's the first time we've done this sort of webinar format, as I mentioned. Can I ask if anyone's got any questions? Over to you guys. Any ideas for app development?